Okay, starting this a minute early. We'll sit here on the off chance that somebody shows up on time. And also shut down the sound output because that's going to screw things up. Okay, so the project for today is to continue working on part of the Lifecycle Laboratory, as I'm calling it, in OpenHistoricalMap. The basic premise here is that we've got to deal with various life cycle issues in a way that OpenStreetMap doesn't really have to confront, because we have to map, the history of the building's life cycle and not just where it is now. And so that means that we need to look at the life cycle page in OpenStreetMap that outlines approaches, and we really need to pick one and go with it. And I'm advocating for one that uses relations to carry life cycle information about their subsidiary objects. So I've started playing with the Harmony Mills area in Cohoes here. And this is a fairly complex area. A lot of stuff has happened over time. It's on the National Registry of Historic Places, and that has some merits, and it's important enough that there's actually a Wikipedia page on the complex. Most of the Wikipedia page is actually taken from the National Registry document, so it's nice to have it as a reference. But from the reference point of view, I can go directly to the National Historic Registry document, which is available online. And so that's what I've done. And one of the reasons I know that most of the Wikipedia article is from there is that I downloaded this. So the document contains an awful lot of interesting material. It's got an introduction, which includes quite a few dates. Contains an outline of the buildings. There are lots of little gems hidden in here. One of the challenges that I've been dealing with is attempting to understand what happened with all the waterways in the area, because it's become very clear from looking at things like the insurance maps and the other maps of the area that there were some complexity to what happened with the Erie Canal, which is one of the mapping projects. Okay, so here on the top of page 5, the end of this paragraph is an interesting one. Some of you probably encountered this before because I've talked about it, but superficial accounts of the Erie Canal talk about the original canal, which opened in 1824, and the enlarged canal, which was declared completed in 1862. But there are intermediate steps to this. So, for example, right here, a rectangular brick tower on the western facade of the building faced Lock 16 of the realigned and enlarged Erie Canal of 1837 through 42. The original bed lies to the east of the building and was taken over by the Cohoes Company in 1837 and used as a hydraulic canal. And if we scan down here, we see that the 1837 through 42 Erie Canal bed and Lock 16 are intact, but filled in with topsoil to create a linear city park. The tops of the stone locks are still visible. So let's bring this up. This is the bed of the quote original unquote Erie Canal right here. Really, the section up here, upper left, is going to be original Erie Canal, and this is going to be the 1837 through 1842 section. And what I'm actually, working on is understanding how we got to these various states. So one of these Sanborn maps is Cohoes. Yeah, that's the Cohoes topo. Where is the Cohoes Sanborn insurance map? Or did I maybe delete it because the list was getting long? Cohoes Troy Lansingburg is not the map I'm looking for. I'm not sure why that's not being served. Could Map Warper be down? That would certainly slow down my progress on this stuff today. Well, okay, we're going to partition that because that's going to be roughly the spot where the canal was rerouted. Add start date 1/8/37, date 1/8/42, because I am hoping I remember this correctly, but yeah, 37 to 42. And what that implies is that the enlarged canal, which is just slightly up the hill here, is going to have a start date of 1842 as it replaced the older section of canal. And I'm going to have to just go through and work on this, but for now, the section that's really visible to us right here we're going to deal with. And this will have been decommissioned when the barge canal went into operation, and that is a current subject of research. And some of this still exists today, and so what I'm going to have to do is be really careful with my life cycle stuff here. And I haven't really worked out how I want to model that life cycle yet, as I know what I've got right now is oversimplified. So what I want to do at this point, I would like to put this section of canal down. Let's go take a quick look mapwarper.net. Okay, so mapwarper.net is being served. Browse all mosaics. Look for Cohoes. This is the mosaic. I'm after 1885. So I may have been just looking for the wrong year. Let's go back and take a look. No, I do not see that, so I must have deleted it in order to shorten the list. So I guess now I get to put it back. So for anybody who doesn't know how to do this, this is my mosaic in MapWarper. Grab the tiles URL. That's the one that OpenStreetMap that Jocelyn will handle quite effectively. Need to get to this images panel. Add TMS. For some reason, it's doing that now. One 885 Cohoes Sanborn. One of the challenges is simply understanding how the network of canals changed, and okay, we're not actually going to get very far with this because Sanborn did not actually model the mills, or it doesn't appear that they did, and I didn't really remember that detail from this map. So what other resources do we have? 1952 aerials are likely to have limited value for this, although this is interesting because, yeah, what we've got here, when the Erie Canal was shifted, one of the things that happened was it got redirected for use as a power canal. And I've been busy trying to puzzle together how all of this stuff morphed over time. There's nobody who writes about this is interested in precisely the same details as I am. This is Mapbox today. You're going to need to work on the footprints of some of these buildings. But yeah, you see there is old power canal here along the bank of the Mohawk. Here it is easily visible in 1952 aerial. But they may have, excavated and filled, because this right here, I think, based on my reading, is actual Erie Canal bed from the original version of the canal. Basically, they built the mill building, and then when the mill owners wanted to take over this whole area and build additional mill buildings, they basically rerouted the canal around the building and filled it in, and I don't know who paid for that. But according to the documents, this was filled in this parking lot today. So I find that extremely believable. So we're just going to, for the moment, fill that in because we believe that. Add waterway canal. Erie Canal. Start date 1/8/24. It's highly likely that it was built 1822, 23, but I don't have documentation on that yet. We know that the Albany end was relatively late to finish. And end date 1837, because the section behind the building was built. So that's at least a start. And that leads me to realize that I'm going to have to rethink the relation structure that I have used to this point because it's oversimplified. But also the messaging here is that, the oversimplification, I'm not going to say oversimplification. That's really the wrong word to use, but we're going to need to I'm going to put this in notationally because that is highly likely that, you know, this was original canal and then this was dug out later to meet the needs of the Cahos company. It's likely more closer to where the Erie Canal was, because if we go look at 1885 Sanborn, this is showing us 1885 when things have been rerouted. And so this reflects where the company canal was. And those line up pretty well, but I'm not surprised that the Sanborn is well aligned. So we can come back here. And it's almost certain that what happened was that this building was built on top of the canal afterwards, because we have an actual date for this building before I draw that in. Yeah, this building has a start date of circa 1853. See, we're using EDTF notation here. So we put the tilde after the date to indicate the equivalent of circa. So yeah, likely that the canal was filled in before this thing was built. And right at the moment, we've got an end date here of 1837. So it's not actually gone in 52, so we'll have to come back and we'll basically split that because this end date is actually after 1952. And if I'm switching to EDT, DTF notation, which I want to, basically it exists in 1952. We don't know when it was filled in, so what we want to do is use the interval format. And we don't know what the end is, so we just write a slash. So that indicates that whatever the end date is, it is sometime between 1952 and an unknown date. And I'm going to have to open a ticket in GitHub asking for the OpenHistoricalMap rendering engine to recognize the things that end with slash or tilde or other approximation symbols should be interpreted in a certain way. So that will do for that. Now, another note here that I wanted to look at. I'm going to delete the building tags down here on these because they're not complete areas. And they're going to get their buildingness, such as it were, from the multi-polygons. So and then manufacturer is bad, tagging, industrial is official. This is all temporary. These buildings exist today, but they've been converted into loft residences. So on this guy because its configuration changed at some point. This guy has got the Wikipedia tagging on it. And not paying attention to what I'm doing. Let's edit this guy. This mill has a nickname, the Mastodon Mill, because when they were excavating for it, they found a complete skeleton of a mastodon, which is now considered famous, the Cohoes mastodon. So, building 2 is also industrial. At some point, we're going to come back and duplicate the multi-polygon, possibly more than once, to represent the evolution of these buildings, because what I am depicting right now is their time as a textile mill, when there isn't really more specific tagging for that. And let's close these to get more space here. But they were eventually became, multi-use, multi-tenant commercial. Now they are residential, and so in the life cycle tagging, I should duplicate the multi-polygons and seek to represent the different variants of the building. Okay, so I saw this extension off the back, but I know they did a bunch of work for the residential expansion. So I wanted to see what was there in 1952. So that was actually there in 1952, although there's also other stuff back there in 1952 that's not there today. That building right there has disappeared, but that building does not appear to be connected to the main building. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, and these buildings have been added. I don't have any kind of life cycle on these. They may be parking garages for the tenants now that it's a loft apartment. Supposedly they've added a pool here too. I don't know where that was, and it's clearly indoors. This is actually, pretty far to the north, and it gets cold. So if you want the pool to be available all winter. Oh yeah, and I just added this the other day, and yeah, I set that building to yes. Let's go back and look at this. Picker House, Storehouse, Pump House, a series of connected brick buildings to the northeast of Mill Number 1, originally contained the Picker House at the southern end, where bales were opened and cleaned, storage for raw cotton. Brick buildings are 1 to 2 stories high with flat and gable roofs, blah, blah, blah. The northernmost building was built as the pump house and housing for the attendants. Later also contained the fire pumper. Well, that's pretty much mixed use. I'm going to leave that yes for now because it's hard to sort this out. So office and Sunday school building. I figured out the other day by looking at the comparing the text description to various views that, and yes, I am going to improve these building footprints now that I am getting a better look at them here. This building right here was the office complex for the mill. Okay, we have gone off into spinny-thing mode. So we're going to delete that building and try again. So we're going to put in tags of (1853) tilde. Yeah, circa 1853. So we map that into 1853 tilde. The building shows in an 1856 map. So we're going to add that note. So this building was kind of mixed use too, but it was originally constructed to serve as an office for the mill complex. It also contained apartments for some mill staff members, and it had a large common room on the second floor, which was used by locals. So I'm just going to call that office and be done with it. And then this building is a historic pump house. It's not that historic. They left it out of the historic district. The building, is going to call it industrial. I think it's the heating plant for the whole complex, actually. Tools, orthogonalize, which is Q, but that squares it up. What is it called in the historic district document? Boiler house. Name is Boiler House. And is there any note about, oh, wait a minute, because it's not 1853, it's 1911. Getting sloppy. Okay, worker housing, all of this is up here. And I mapped that the other day. And this is all period housing from the heyday of the mill. This is interesting because this is the original power canal, and it disappears underground here, and you can actually see the culvert opening, and I'm planning to go back up here and take a look at it. Basically, they dug out the space between the power raceway and the original Erie Canal, which is right here in the lower corner, and built a new powerhouse generator building here. And so This is not mapped yet, but this dates from the same time as the boiler house, at least according to the National Historic District document. So yeah, Power Canal Raceway, 1834 was the original version, and that was parallel to the Erie Canal. The water eventually moved through 10 canals on 6 different levels through the city of Cohoes. These are all covered over now, except for a small section to the east of mill number 2. I've got to go look and see if that's visible. The raceway is used to feed this dam now. Those raceways are visible. Let's go back to the Cohoes mosaic on Map Warper. A lot of those canals through the Cohoes are quite visible when you look at the 1850 or 1885 survey map. So you've got the finger there, there, there. This looks like a piece of the old Erie Canal, which was eventually diverted into the Power Canal. So yeah, there's a lot of waterways through Cohoes which are visible in the 1885 map. And I haven't even begun to explore how I'm going to handle all of that. And this is just, how complicated mapping the Industrial Revolution and the expansion of all of this industry in the U.S. is in this period. So stuff changed a lot. So anyway, I figured that today so it defaults to building equals yes. So this is the generator plant. (1911) without the circa, so start date. Because we know when that was built. So yeah, you see the water is coming out through these big pipes and into the generator plant, and I am not quite sure what the right way to map that is. Key building, is there a good tag to represent? Okay, power technical buildings, that looks like a good one to look at. Yeah, nothing under power technical buildings that's applicable. How many times does power appear in this document? No, that's... No, we don't really have building tagging here. Let's see if there's something in the family of electrical grid systems that applies under the power key instead of the okay, well this is a generator building, But then you could also argue that it's a power plant. Yeah, power plant's more appropriate than just generator. Nothing here for hydro. So we'll just use power plant. That'll be fine. I'm not quite sure what to do here, so we're going to leave it alone for now. Yeah, move that too far. I also wanted to go look at the top of the power canal. This is the Cohoes Company Dam. Yeah, and the start date is kind of, notational. I mean, this is the actual date that this dam was built. It's on the site of two earlier dams, one in 1831 and 1839. I don't have a lot of documentation about the previous two dams, so I don't know if they're on exactly the same site or something else. And obviously they're working on power generation with these dams because the power canal itself dates from, what was it? Yeah, I know there's a line for the Power Canal Raceway in here somewhere. Should scroll slower so I can actually see what I'm looking at. Power Canal Raceway, yeah, that's been there since 1834. According to this, so that happened at approximately the same time when they built that dam. So right here, this is some complexity. Gatehouse controlled the flow of water from the Mohawk River into the canal. T-shaped with the top of the T. Okay, so that's the gatehouse. And I did enter that already. Excellent. But you see there also appears to be a dam here. So this is the end, and then there's another summary. It looks like I may be able to answer some questions. Yeah, we've got the Harmony Mill Company existing at least through the 1880s and probably longer. But that's one of the things I'm trying to sort out. The Cahos first developed as an industrial center after the completion of the Champlain Canal in 1823 and the Erie Canal in 1825. The Erie Canal was declared open in 1824, so I'm not quite sure why that says 1825. So there's some historical documentation here. Harmony Manufacturing incorporated in 1836 with Peter Harmony as its first president. So there's where the name comes from. Money loser until 1850 and sold at auction. Garner and Wild hired well and made it into a much bigger success. Detailed description of the buildings. The issue is, does this history eventually get to when Harmony Mills shut itself down? Is it still a very, very strong business? Workers on strike, shutdowns in the 1870s, denouncing the influence of outsiders, so labor unrest. Through the 1880s, depression in the cotton goods market. "15-week strike." So yeah, 1880s look pretty rough. Okay, 1910. Garner Estate sells its interest to the Draper Corporation. Also divested themselves of the Cahos Company, which was doing the power and hydro stuff. Okay, so the rerouting, yeah, between 1911 and 1915. So still active. Okay. So they were liquidated from 1932 to 1936. So 1936 needs to be the effective end date because afterwards, as far as I can tell, they turned into mixed-use commercial buildings, although that life cycle is also going to be notational because there's more research to do. But we can now come down here. Yeah, that's the relation for the earlier form of the building. Nope, one was wrong. That's the one we want. So now we set my mouse is sluggish. End date of 1936 when it was sold at auction. Now we duplicate it, and Jocelyn will complain because the step's rarely necessary, but I say it is. So end date becomes start date. Make it 1937 just in order to make time slider happy. The rest of the tags, oh yeah, we got to delete this start date. Okay. And actually don't want to do that just yet because I also want to go to building. Change it to commercial. And then because of the Wikipedia article on Harmony Mills, went into conflict. So the complex was, okay, I'm going to say the end date was 1999 on commercial usage. And then duplicate again. So delete that and change the start date to 2000. And it's apartments now, luxury apartments, but are still apartments. So we've now actually mapped out the land use fairly completely on this guy. I could keep going because there's a couple more buildings to do, but I think this is probably, this is a good bunch of work for today. We have mapped out more of the Erie Canal's history. We have recognized the enlargement of the canal is more complicated than just 1862. There was magically an enlarged canal. And, there's some progress. Goes is gradually getting better. I might as well double click to drop and then double click the point in there. We know that this existed in the building in 1952. It was likely there for a long time. And then tools. There it is, orthogonalize. So that's squared up pretty good. So upload. Yeah, it doesn't like this building inside building stuff. We're doing things with relation that you don't do an OpenStreetMap, and the designers of the JOSM validator are not really aware of and maybe not even interested in, so we just kind of accept that. And goes New York. So we used Bing, 1952 aerial, 1885 Tahoe Sanborn, National Registry document. And all of this is going to have to go in the documentation page for the affected projects on the OHM wiki, but that's just time for another day. So upload all of this. I'm going to call this a good session. We got a bunch done. And the next time we do OpenHistoricMap will probably be Saturday. So until then, I'm going to be writing in Zwift on the next couple of days, which has nothing to do with mapping at all. See you the next time.